89.1 FM Rich Radio Hashtag Surmount Kalamitan Kaheaven.
Hello to all senior high school learners of Kalangitan High School. An amazing day to you all. I'm your Sir Mel Santos and welcome to another virtual study session right at the comforts of our homes in 21st century literature from the Philippines and the world. So we are now on the third of the 7-part series of virtual learning for our topic, 21st century literary traditions and forms from different cultures. This episode will be about the developments of Japanese literature in relation to culture. Now have your paper and pen handy for note-taking along with your self-learning module as we are about to engage in another literary adventure. So set your mind and heart, have yourselves feeling at ease and focused to get the most out of learning from today's topic. So again, let's not forget about our learning goals for the entire 7-part series of this virtual learning. First, identify the 21st century literary traditions and forms of different cultures, notably Japanese literature on this episode. Distinguish the differences of these 21st century literary traditions and forms of different cultures from their established or classical literary conventions, and appreciate the 21st century literary developments of different cultures. So mga kaheaven, let's get started to roll. Japanese literature spans a period of almost 2 millennia and comprises one of the major literatures in the world, comparable to English literature in age and scope. It comprises a number of genres, including novels, poetry, drama, travelogues, personal diaries, and collections of random thoughts and impressions. Early Japanese literary works includes the Kojiki, or the Records of Ancient Matters, which is an early Japanese chronicle of myths, legends, hymns, oral traditions, and semi-historical accounts concerning the origin of the Japanese archipelago, or the so-called kami, and the Japanese imperial line. Nihon Shoki, or the Chronicles of Japan, is the second oldest book of classical Japanese history. The book is also called the Nihongi, or the Japanese Chronicles. It is more elaborate and detailed than the oldest book, Kojiki, and has proven to be an important tool for historians and archaeologists as it includes the most complete extant historical record of ancient Japan. Drama had become one of Japan's favorite forms of amusement since ancient times. Again, when we say drama in literature, we are referring to any literary work that are intended to be performed on stage, such as a monologue or a soliloquy. A drama has written dialogues and stage action. It's a literary genre that allows actors to act out a writer's words directly to an audience. These types of Japanese drama include the no play, which is the oldest surviving form of Japanese theater. It combines music, dance, and acting to communicate Buddhist themes. Often the plot of no play recreates famous scenes from well-known works of Japanese literature, such as the Tale of Genji, which we will talk about later. In other words, no play is like adapting a certain literary work for a stage play. Joruri or bunraku puppet drama is a type of chanted opera that came to be used as a script in bunraku puppet drama. The puppets are beautifully made and are usually lifelike in size. They are expertly manipulated and the dialogue realistically interpreted.
Your heart too is weeping. You are speaking of your friend. Spitefully.
And the kabuki play or the play of the masses, it is less intellectual, more realistic, even sensational. Kabuki theater is known for its heavily stylized performances, the often glamorous costume worn by performers, and for the elaborate kumadori makeup worn by some of its performers. The oldest collection of Japanese poetry is called Manyoshu, which translates to collection of myriad leaves. It was compiled in 800 AD. Japanese literature is also known for the novel known to be the first novel ever written in the world entitled The Tale of Genji, which is often the subject or the story portrayed in no play. This was written more than 1,000 years ago. The Tale of Genji is a classical work of Japanese literature written in the early 11th century by the noblewoman Murasaki Shikibu. The work recounts the life of Hikaru Genji or Shinin Genji, who is the son of an ancient Japanese emperor known to readers as Emperor Kiritsubo, and a low-ranking concubine called Kiritsubo Consort. For political reasons, the emperor removes Genji from the line of succession, demoting him to a commoner by giving him the surname Minamoto, and he pursues a career as an imperial officer. The tale concentrates on Genji's romantic life and describes the customs of the aristocracy society of the time. The Tale of Genji may be the world's first novel, the first psychological novel, and the first novel still to be considered a classic. It is originally 54 chapters long and more than 1,000 pages in length. So remember, the characters in the book of the Tale of Genji are fictional since this is a novel, but the work still gives us a unique depiction of the lifestyle of the High Imperial Court during the Heian period of Japan in 784 AD. This period was named Heian, which in modern day is Kyoto, Japan. So that's what literature can do. Even when a literary work is fictional, it can still be an important reference to look at, especially when you want to know or study about the historical perspective of a certain period. Because more often than not, even when it is a work of fiction, it could still reflect what the life of ordinary people or the social atmosphere or the culture that pervaded at the time. Such as in the case of the Tale of Genji, it is still being studied up to now in schools and by historians as basis to depict what life was during the Heian period, which was already more than 1,000 years ago. Fictional works may be made up or just a product of the author's imagination, but it often stays true with the culture of the period when the story was written. One of the powers of literature and the tradition in fiction writing for 1,000 years now is it mimics life. It always tries to stay true with the social atmosphere or the culture of a certain period where the story is told. Alright, moving on, let's jump right ahead to the 1940s or the contemporary period in Japanese literature. World War II and Japan's defeat influenced Japanese literature. Many authors wrote stories of disaffection, loss of purpose, and the coping with defeat. An example of this is the Zais Osamu's novel, The Setting Sun, which tells of a soldier returning from Manchukuo, or the state of Manchuria, a puppet state of the Empire of Japan in northeast China and Inner Mongolia from 1932 until 1945. At the turn of the contemporary period to 21st century period, Japanese literature had been marked by strong and intentional break from tradition. This break included a strong reaction against established religious, political, and social views and the concern with the subconscious. There was a strong reaction against established religious, political, and social views, particularly in 1970s and 1980s when prominent writers were identified with intellectual and moral issues in their attempts to raise social and political consciousness. One of them, Oe Kenzaburo, wrote his best-known work, A Personal Matter, in 1964 and became Japan's second winner of the Nobel Prize for Literature. Another intentional break from tradition is the concern with the subconscious. This refers to the Japanese storytelling approach that focuses on the inner lives of the characters, the life they live, or the life they desire to live that only exists in their minds. This approach led to emergence of Buddhist ideology in the themes, which is generally about the importance of knowing oneself. This concern over the subconscious also led to growing emphasis on women's roles, the Japanese persona in the modern world, and the dissatisfaction of common people lost in the complexities of urban culture. There's also the re-emergence of the I novel, which is a novel in first-person point of view written like an autobiographical confessional type of narration. The I novel is a literary genre in Japanese literature used to describe a type of confessional literature where the events in the story corresponds to events in the author's life. This genre was founded based on the Japanese reception of naturalism during the Meiji period. The Meiji period is an era of Japanese history that extended from October 23, 1868 to July 13, 1912. The I novel reflects greater individuality and a less constrained method of writing. From its beginnings, the I novel has been a genre that also is meant to expose aspects of society or of the author's life. Since the 19th century, manga remains a popular trend in Japan. Manga, the comics, has penetrated almost every sector of the popular market. It includes virtually every field of human interest. The term manga is used in Japan to refer to both comics and cartooning, as discussed in detail in your previous module, as one of the 21st century literary genre. There's also a sustained trend of cell phone novels in Japan, which appeared in the early 21st century. Written by and for cell phone users, the novels, typically romances read by young women, have become very popular both online and in print. Some, such as Sky of Love, Koizora, written by Mika, have sold millions of print copies, and at the end of 2007, cell phone novels comprise 4 of the top 5 fiction bestsellers. Sky of Love or Koizora is a 2005 best-selling Japanese coming-of-age and romance novel written by Mika, originally posted on the cell phone website where chapters would be released exclusively for mobile reading. Koizora was ultimately made into a film in 2007. Alright, that ends the third of the 7-part series of virtual learning on 21st century literary tradition and forms from different cultures. See you on the next episode, and bye for now, mga kahebe.
89.1 FM Rich Radio Hashtag Surmount Kalamitan Kahevin